All right, everyone. The U.S. diplomatic rhetoric over the situation in Syria, it's shadows of Obama right now. And Nikki Haley going to the UN saying, oh, the U.S. might be forced to take unilateral action in Syria if the UN is not willing to get involved. And then saying, of course, Russia's ally within the region, really puppet, which is Bashar al-Assad, is nerve-gassing civilians. That's funny. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Obama said the same thing and wanted to conduct strikes, and of course, no, that didn't happen. He copped out. What happened is Obama said, we should probably fire some cruise missiles at Assad's forces because of this nerve gas they unleashed. And of course, upon further consideration, there was some question as to who actually deployed it and what happened. Much like in the current situation, Russia's saying, it was a terrorist depot for making nerve gas or some other chemical agent. It got hit by Assad's forces, blew up, and, people got poisoned. They got fucked up. And that's roughly what the Russians said before. And at the time, of course, upon further investigation by the UN itself, it turned out, at least in some of those situations, indeed, Assad had not gassed his own people. Had nothing to do with it. It was the FSA, the people we were funding, that were involved with that. I am disheartened to see that somebody who is a Trump appointee, someone who is a Trump ally, would be taking the same Obama-era warmongering rhetoric, as though our involvement in Syria has been anything but a net negative, and amplify it and suggest that we would actually get further involvement in Syria or in this general region. The idea of conducting strikes on ISIS, I have no problem with. Yes, there's collateral damage. Hopefully it's held to a minimum. Even Mattis appears to be concerned about that fact, which is something we didn't see during the Obama administration. To his credit, in at least Mattis's case, at least he has the foresight to see it's probably not the greatest diplomatic idea in the world. We've been suffering under that for decades. But the idea that it's going to be all fun and games to get further involved in Syria, man, you're asking for World War III. Trump, I hope that Trump doesn't agree with this. I hope he comes out, holds to what he said before, which is screw the situation in Syria, let Assad take care of it. Most of these problems wouldn't even be happening if we weren't propping up the FSA, which ultimately is making it harder for Assad and all these other groups to fight ISIS anyway. It's really not helping. We need to focus on things here. I hope Trump still believes that. And I hope he reins in Nikki Haley, calls her in and says, what are you doing? You're threatening U.S. involvement, military involvement, in a very complex situation where the two other main world powers are already present. The Russians are already on the ground there. The Chinese have been idling offshore for months. What exactly are we supposed to accomplish there? Syria was already a marginal puppet of the Russians anyway. It doesn't change the situation to withdraw and let it restabilize under a regime that's still going to be a Russian puppet. It's just a non-change of situation. And what's the alternative? We get involved. Let's say we push the Russians aside. Let's say we push the Chinese aside. We say, okay, well, we're getting involved. You're welcome to move aside, otherwise you might get hit, and we're not going to, deal with anything from you. You'd best leave us alone and let us operate because, reasons or something, chemical gas or whatever. Let's say we do that. Let's say we topple Assad. We declare him to be dangerous, evil, despotic individual like we did with Saddam Hussein. Is the end result going to be any different than what happened in Iraq? Iraq has its own problems still right now. It was stable for a while as long as we were physically there, draining the public coffers and watching our people go over and suffer and get shot at in the middle of a desert. For a while it was kind of stable. We scaled down our involvement and all of a sudden shit hit the fan. We get involved in Syria and the same thing happens, to the point at which the Russians, expansionist as they may sometimes be, despotic as Putin may sometimes be, conducting assassinations, his internal policy is a joke, basically, at this point, to the point where even Russians are protesting against Putin, who supposedly has like 90% approval. So I think that's probably not quite entirely true. Bad as that may be, even the Russians now find it so barbaric what ISIS is doing. They're so concerned with the spread of this group that they had to get physically involved. I don't think they wanted to. I think they would have rather we left Assad alone and didn't essentially start the Syrian civil war by arming groups that at first never would have been capable of fighting Assad. And then ISIS saw the vacuum there that was created by the groups that we helped to fund and train under Obama. And then all hell broke loose. And the same thing happened in Libya with Gaddafi. Yeah, we removed somebody who, he had lots of concubines. He lived a very lavish lifestyle. He was a little bit of a weird character. Yeah, Gaddafi was. See, the problem is you remove him, you remove the strong man who's actually empowered to keep things seemingly calm within his territory, and ISIS moves in. Wonderful. So I oppose this rhetoric. We'd better be damn sure that several things are true before we even consider involvement. Getting taken in by pictures of children who have been hit by nerve gas. Anytime the government of the United States tries to sell us, think of the children, or think of patriotism, or hey, we're strong, we're going to go beat somebody's ass. It always seems to be predicated on lies. It's going to be like the Gulf of Tonkin, or Saddam's supposed involvement in 9/11, or something like that. Well, I'm not going to get taken in again. When Obama suggested striking the Syrian forces under Assad, because of reasons, I opposed it. And most people opposed it, and I hope they still do, regardless of the fact that Trump happens to be in there. The fact that he's not mincing words, and that he's actually forthright about the goal of being involved with these foreign countries is, yeah, we're going to kick our enemies' asses. That doesn't mean that the strategy itself, it might be better, but the end result isn't going to be. It doesn't matter how competent your leadership is, your military leadership, the president, whatever. It doesn't matter how competent they are. The end result will end up the same, because eventually people will no longer want to occupy that godforsaken piece of desert. So we'd better be damn sure it was Assad that deployed it. No questions, no ambiguity. We have to be certain. Otherwise, it's unjust to get further involved. Number 2, we need to cut off all of our involvement with the FSA. Lots of these problems would solve themselves if we weren't constantly dicking around over here. Number 3, we have to make sure it's not a false flag of some kind. What if it was some rogue group of former Assad loyalists who did this in order to get foreign powers involved? This was a threat at the time that Obama suggested it. What if some other force, what if some ISIS group wants the U.S. involved in order to grind down our economy and get to shoot at us in a guerrilla warfare situation? What if that's what's happening? Has anybody even considered this possibility? That we may be walking into literally a trap. They don't have to expend, they've already got U.S. goods, Russian goods, they get everything under the sun. They don't need to worry about getting shot at or expending money. Half of these people are suicidal, they don't care if they get shot. And the other half, they know, oh, well, we can just do hit and run, disappear into the background. The U.S. military, muzzled as it were by its own bureaucracy as well as this UN stuff, it'll be easy to grind them down. We kill 2-3 people a day, we'll be just fine. And that's essentially what goes on in these situations. It happened in Iraq for years and years and years. We need to avoid getting further involved within the region. I think we should have less involvement, not more. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I'm not just going to believe the government when it says, oh, Assad gassed his people. Where's the proof? And I don't mean, oh, here's a piece of tangential evidence. No, I mean proof. Is there proof that this actually happened? We know people were gassed. Who did it? Now, well, what maker's mark was on the shells that were deployed for this gas usage or something like that? Obama suggested the same thing. Now we've got Nikki Haley suggesting that we might do the same thing, and I'm still oppose it now. It doesn't matter that Trump happens to be the president, and I think he makes more competent foreign policy decisions. Because that wouldn't be a competent decision to make. Hopefully this is just our U.S. ambassador to the UN mouthing off without Trump really being involved in her saying these things. Or it's just a ploy to get the UN involved. Let them go handle it. The UN is ineffectual. They'll dick around. They can waste their time in Syria if they really want to. They can risk war with Russia or China or whatever the hell may be the case. The US doesn't need to be involved. We've got our own problems right now. We're already overstretched, honestly, as it is. That's about all. Peace out.